got that idea in the bathroom today. Worked. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Today we'll discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 40, La Ultima, last verse, wrapping up the chapter. With apologies to Adidev Prabhu, who has a streak, I think, of beginning the last three chapters. Dr. Patni Mataji gets the honor to. Adidev is just going to have to watch. So text 40. Yato prapya yavartanta yato prapya nivartanta vachas cha manasa saha vachas cha manasa saha Aham Chanya Ime Devas Aham Chanya Ime Devas Tasmai Bhagavate Namaha Tasmai Bhagavate Namaha Yato prapya nivartanta vachascha manasa saha aham chanya ime devas tasmai bhagavate namaha Yato prapya nivartanta vachascha manasa saha aham chanya ime devas tasmai bhagavate namaha Yato prapya nivartanta
Yato prapya nivartanta vachascha manasa saha aham chanya ime devas tasma bhagavate namah
Yato prapya nivartanta vachascha manasa saha aham chanya ime devas tasmai bhagavate namaha
tasmai bhagavate
Yato prapya nivartanta
manasa saha.
Aham chanyai devas.
Aham chanyai devas.
Tasmai Bhagavate namaha.
Tasmai Bhagavate namaha.
Synonyms. Yataha,
Yataha.
from whom?
From whom?
Aprapya,
Aprapya.
being unable to measure.
Unable to measure.
Nyavartanta,
Nivartanta.
cease to try.
Cease to try.
Vacha,
Vacha.
words.
Words.
Cha,
Cha.
also.
Also.
Manasa,
Manasa.
within the mind.
With the mind.
Thank you. With the mind. Within you and without you. Saha,
Saha.
with.
With.
Aham cha,
Aham cha.
also the ego.
Also the ego.
Anye,
Anye.
other.
Other.
Ime,
May.
all these.
All these.
Deva,
Deva.
demigods.
Demigods.
Tasmai,
Tasmai.
unto him.
Unto him.
Bhagavate,
Bhagavate.
unto the personality of Godhead.
Unto the personality of Godhead.
Namaha,
Namaha.
offer obeisance.
Offer obeisance.
Translation. Words, mind, and ego, with their respective controlling demigods, have failed to achieve success in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances unto him as a matter of sanity.
Love this verse.
So cool.
So, this is one of those places where Srila Prabhupada brings bhava into the verse. It's not explicitly in the Sanskrit, it's just cool. Responsibly, please. Words, mind, and ego,
Words, mind, and ego.
with their respective controlling demigods,
With their respective controlling demigods.
have failed to achieve success
Have failed to achieve success
in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances
Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances
unto him
unto him
as a matter of sanity.
as a matter of sanity.
Srila Prabhupada's purport. The froggish calculator, one of our favorite characters of this chapter, may raise the objection that if the Absolute is unknowable even by the controlling deities of speech, mind, and ego, namely the Vedas, Brahma, Rudra, and all the demigods headed by Brihaspati, then why should the devotees be so interested in this unknown object? The answer is that the transcendental ecstasy enjoyed by the devotees in delineating the pastimes of the Lord is certainly unknown to non-devotees and mental speculators. Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. This is life. It's that simple. Unless one relishes transcendental joy, naturally one will come back from his speculations and concocted conclusions, because he will see them as neither factual nor enjoyable. The devotees can at least know that the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, as the Vedic hymns confirm. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Surya. Bhagavad Gita also confirms this fact. Vedaistu sarvai rahameva vediha. By culture of Vedic knowledge, one must know Lord Krishna and should not falsely speculate on where to hum or I. The only method for understanding the supreme truth is devotional service, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Utyanam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattvataha. Where's Lily? Where's my pin? Okay, I have to do it myself. Only by devotional service can one know the ultimate truth, that the ultimate truth is the personality of Godhead, and that Brahman and Paramatma are only his partial features. This is confirmed in this verse by the great sage Maitreya. With devotion, he offers his sincere surrender, namaha, unto the personality of Godhead, Bhagavate. One has to follow in the footsteps of great sages and devotees like Maitreya and Vidura, Maharaj Parikshit, and Shukadev Goswami, and engage in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, if one would know his ultimate feature, which is above Brahman and Paramatma. Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukhaṁ karoti vachalam pangum lankayate girim jakrapatamaham bande Shri Gurun Dinataram. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Vidati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhobhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Yito Prajanya Vartanta Vachascha Manasasava Ahum Chanya Ime Devas Tasmai Bhagavate. Words, mind, and ego with their respective controlling demigods have failed to achieve success in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances unto Him as a matter of sanity. So if you are fortunate enough to have a copy of Narayani's Srimad Bhagavatam at a glance, it's pretty much the whole chapter. We've gone through all these verses with all this stuff, all these different personalities doing all, and nothing happens. Nothing comes to fruition. Nothing makes any sense but with Krishna. And so, and in the meantime, on another layer, here's Maitreya trying to respond to Vidura's ardent inquiry about how all this stuff works, and he fails. He says, can't do it. It's impossible. Because Krishna is adhokshaja. This is a really cool word that Srila Prabhupada explained a few times. Adhokshaja means beyond the ken of the mind and senses, beyond the ability of the mind to conceive and the senses to grasp. I mean, we can't, we try. Oh, and all these froggish speculators and calculators and whatever else Srila Prabhupada calls them along the way in this chapter. They all try, just like Dr. Frog, that's where that comes from, right? Try to grasp the complete whole, the absolute personality of Godhead in our little mind, capture Him in our mind. But we utterly fail. He simply declines to answer our subpoena, to appear in the court of our mind and prove Himself. Right? Sometimes people probably would say, can you show me God? Well, do you have the eyes to see? That would be his response. He would challenge them right back. Sometimes, he would ask them, people would ask him, has he seen God? And essentially his answer is the answer that we get, especially in this first part of the Bhagavatam. Duh, he's everywhere. How can you not? Blind people can't see God, but those who've been by chakshurun militam, by the ointment of spiritual vision, shastra chakshus, as we've seen in this chapter, been blessed by their gurus to have some sense of just a little vision, however fuzzy. It's like when you get old, your vision gets a little fuzzy because your lenses get clouded over with Cataracts, right? Fortunately, I have slow-growing ones. Unfortunately, I have slow-growing ones. Slow-growing ones means I probably won't get to have surgery, but it unfortunately means I probably won't get the surgery, so I keep seeing stuff fuzzy. A little fuzzy, it's not that bad. But, so when the cataracts are lifted by the grace of Krishna and the Guru, then we start to get a sense, as we saw in the last canto, and it's being, that post is being pounded again here with that stuna nikanana nyaya, that pounding of the post logic, that Krishna's everywhere. Can't you see? So these froggish people can't see this. And how do you see it? We have to open ourselves up. Because as we've seen throughout this chapter, God can't be approached by the ascending process. We have to wait for him to show himself to us. And the way to make ourselves eligible is simply to submit. Just like here, Maitreya is admitting his frailty. We've seen a couple of places, he says, look, this is impossible to understand. This is impossible to explain. We saw how Shukadeva Goswami will say the same thing later toward the end of the 5th canto. Maharaj Prigat asks him, okay, so how is this Jambu Dweep put together? And he says, look, this is crazy. It's a crazy question. It's a wonderful question, but it's impossible to answer. Because God, but I'll do my best. I'll take a swing at it and do my best, according to what I've heard from my gurus, from the sages. And that's our whole thing. We, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagiramaji, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, that after wandering not just through the universe, but through the entire cosmos, from universe to universe, not just from body to body, for goodness knows how long. Maybe God knows how long. Since beyond time. It's beginningless. Anadi karma bale, I've been stuck in this ocean of material existence since beyond time, because my karma is beginningless. So, how do we get out? Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. We receive Shri Shri Panchatattva Jai. We receive some sense of how to see by having these cataracts lifted from our eyes, having this darkness cleared, having the curtain, Maya Javanika Chanda, as Queen Kunti prays, that curtain of the illusory energy pulled back, just like the Wizard of Oz, and we get to see, what's the real deal? He's got his microphone with his big reverb, and he's got his bass turned up and the treble turned down, so his squeaky little voice sounds ominous. And you pull the curtain back, and it's just some little paunchy, bald-headed guy, who's created this illusion. So we get to see beyond the illusion by the grace of Guru and Krishna, by opening ourselves up through service. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Pranipat, Pariprashna, and Seva. By Pranipat, offering obeisances, by submitting ourselves, just as Maitreya is doing here in this last verse of the chapter, just as Draupadi did when she realized the hopelessness of her effort to protect herself from the assault of Dushasana. So finally, she's holding on to her clock, trying to protect, because after all, she's a powerful woman. She's not, this is like, I guess, the real Cinderella or something like this. This is a powerful woman. But still, Dushasana is like this, like monstrously strong and monstrously mean and monstrously lusty man. So he's just like tries to overpower us, so finally she says, hey, Pratigyata Govinda Name Bhakta Pranashti Iti Smatsam Smriti Samsmriti Pranam Samdayami. Because you've made this promise that you're always going to protect your devotee. Okay? Here's your chance, show your stuff, show us what you've got. And he did. So, all by bhakti, it all has to do with bhakti. All has to do with surrender, letting Krishna show himself to us. What do the 12-step folks say? Let go, let God. You can't do this, right? Just like they have this enormous task to overcome this illness, addiction to some substance or some behavior or something like that. And most people find once those grooves, once those samskaras get dug really deep in your subtle body, it can be really hard to overcome them. So you need good company, you need the encouragement, and you need the process. So it's all about let go, let God. And they know. How do they do it? One day at a time. Just like me and my sannyas. If I'm thinking, well, if I could live till 90, 95, like my dad, but my dad was almost 95 when he passed away. He didn't have anything like the lifestyle that I've lived for the last 50 odd years. But, so I'm thinking, oh my God, I might be stuck in this old clunker for another 20 years or so. So, got to take care of it. But, the other part of that is that, I put myself in this crazy situation because I have this addiction. I have this addiction to comfort. I have this addiction to control. And I always get these little things, well, you got to let go of this, you got to let go of that. And the last thing was my Prius, my last illusion of independence. Because if I had my Prius, I could go to the beach any day I wanted. But there's something in there saying, yeah, you don't want to go to the beach because it's addiction. more samskaras. So maybe thinking about doing this for the next 20 some odd years, like, oh my God, what? But today I can do it. Today I will do it. So I get up at Etang Sastaya. First words I say, Etang Sastaya Paradmanishtam Yasitam Bhuvatam. Aham Tarishyami Durantapadam Tamodam. You can help me do this. And we'll get together. I'm holding your hand. We'll get through this. I can do this today. And then tomorrow I start over again. So those little windows, that's something that's manageable. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that he cites the Taittiriya Upanishad saying, words along with the mind turn back from the Lord. We can't really approach that. We can make some attempt to try to understand the Lord as far as we can go. But eventually they're not going to make it. Eventually they'll be turned back because they're made of a categorically different substance. Words, mind, ego, all these things, they're all made of this jada, this dead universe, stuff of this dead universe. But that's life. So what you have to do is open yourself up to that life. So Srila Prabhupada invokes this 55th verse. I'm going to do it today. Invokes this 55th verse of the 18th chapter, which is just really cool. And then I'm going to take a little liberty and just go a little bit beyond that, next couple of verses. But I'm going to take a look at a little bit of Srila Prabhupada's purport. So this verse is Bhaktyamama Vijanati Yavanyas Chasmi Tatomam Tatvato Gyatva Vishate Tadananta. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is only by devotional service. Because he has to reveal himself to us. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, don't you try to see God, but better you try to act in such a way that he'll want to come see you. So, it's like I used to, of course this is extremely dated, tells a little bit about my age, but back in the early 80s, there was this, when Ronald Reagan was president, there was a plane crash. A plane took off from National Airport, now called Reagan Airport, but being an old Washington area guy, I just got to call it National Airport, and crashed into the Potomac River, right? I think it was right by the 14th Street Bridge, which is the bridge that goes across to the Lincoln Memorial. And so there's people in the Potomac River in the middle of winter. It's cold. It's cold. And so there's one guy, I don't remember what he did. He had some kind of blue-collar job named Lenny Skutnik. The guy jumped into the river and rescued a few people from the plane crash. Now, this is a guy who never could have dreamed of getting a personal, private audience with the President of the United States in the Oval Office. But President Reagan personally invited Mr. Skutnik to come meet with him in the Oval Office. I mean, it's an impossible thing. So if the Lord wants to come see us, then we get to see him. Just like with Dhruva, right? Dhruva went to the forest with this crazy mission. He wanted a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather's. And who's his great-grandfather? Lord Brahma. So, and it could only be given by the Lord, so he asks his mother how he might arrange that, and she says, well, I don't know so much, but I've heard that great sages go to the forest to find the Lord. So he goes to the forest, and the Lord sends Narada Muni. This is arranged by the Lord. The encounter between the guru and the disciple, that's arranged by the Lord. The when, who, where, all that, it's all arranged by the Lord. It's one of the lessons we get from that. This is really cool. And so he sends Narada Muni, and Narada Muni challenges him. Look, you're 5 years old, you're a kid. This is serious business. Why don't you just go back, play ball with your buddies, and come back when you're a little older, a little more mature, a little readier for this. And the Kshatriya spirit in Dhruva digs his heels and says, no, this is my deal. And if you can't give it to me, then it's maybe somebody else. So Narada Muni says, okay, the guy's really determined. After all, what's his name? Dhruva. Fixed, determined, can't budge. So we have to be that determined in our approach, in our service. So Srila Prabhupada writes, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna and his plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by the non-devotees. If anyone wants to understand the personality of Godhead, he has to take to pure devotional service under the guidance of a pure devotee. Otherwise, the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will always be hidden. It is already stated, Naham Prakasha, that he's not revealed to everyone. This is in the 7th chapter, Naham Prakasha Sarvasa Yogamaya Samavita. He says, I don't reveal myself just to any dope. Because for them, I'm covered by my Yogamaya. Covered by this magical potency. You can't penetrate that without being invited. So he says, everyone cannot understand God simply by erudite scholarship or mental speculation. Back to the froggish, what was today, calculators. He says, one who's fully conversant with the Krishna science becomes eligible to enter into the spiritual kingdom, the abode of Krishna. Becoming Brahman does not meaning that one loses his identity. So here he's talking about how we attain bhakti at the platform of liberation. And when we attain bhakti, we're automatically liberated. It's a sort of a virtuous cycle kind of a thing. And then he says liberation involves getting free from the concept of material life. So we see that in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? That pure devotional service means becoming free from sarva upadi. I used to joke sometimes, he didn't say some upadis. What is it? Whatever the tantra is, it doesn't say some upadi in your It doesn't say becoming free from some of your upadis. Coming free from all of your upadis. But we do it step by step. We do it a little bit at a time, one day at a time. In spiritual life, the same distinction is there, the same individuality is there, but in pure Krishna consciousness. One should not misunderstand that the word Vishate enters into me, supports the monist theory that one becomes homogeneous with the impersonal Brahman. So we were talking about this the other day. The oneness that's being taught in the Bhagavatam, and therefore, and especially since it's presented so starkly in the second canto, the oneness that's taught in the Vedas, going all the way back to the original Veda, the Rig Veda Samhitas, is this Advaya again that's differentiated at the same time, or qualified at the same time, depending on which of the Vaishnavacharyas you listen to. So that oneness is one in interest, just like I was saying the other day. You and I, Bennett and I get married, and we can do this nowadays, right? Bennett and I get married, we become one. But the Bennettness and I guess it would have to be the Babu-ness, doesn't become erased, but instead together we become a third thing, we become we. So there's still you, there's still me, because there's an exchange of love. Of course, the age gap makes it absolutely absurd, but nevertheless, I mean, that's the kind of oneness that we're interested in. Okay, before the hook comes, I want to just take a quick look ahead in this chapter. Krishna says some cool things. So he talks about how the devotees always depend on him for everything, and then he says, I'm going to keep going because of time. He says, under illusion, you're now declining to act according to my direction. Remember, go back to the first chapter where Arjuna says, okay, we've got this big deal going on here. Before we start, can you just kind of like draw my chariot up in front of the opposing army so I can see just what it is I have to deal with? So where does Krishna take the chariot? Right in front of Drona and Bhishma, the deepest attachment that Arjuna has on the other side. You know, his great uncle, his grandfather, and his own teacher. And he says, okay, there you go. Here's what you have to deal with. It's like kill your closest attachments. That's the deal here. So Arjuna says, he drops his bow and he says, can't do it. No way, no how. Doesn't make any sense. It's immoral. It's just bad idea. And Krishna says, okay. And he makes this big, nice dharmic argument against it. And Krishna says, yeah, okay, sounds nice on the surface. But in this particular context, and in then the ultimate context as well, it doesn't make any sense at all. Consider this. So now we've gotten to the end of that. And he says, Ishvara Sarvabhuta. He says, the Supreme Lord situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. We're stuck in this enormous, we're something that's immeasurably small, physically, could even think of. And somehow or other, we're stuck in this big, complicated thing. O scion of Bharat, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace, you will attain transcendental peace in the supreme and eternal abode. Thus, okay, now he says, here it comes. Fasten your seatbelts. Thus I've explained to you the most confidential of all knowledge. Deliberate on this fully, and then you take Chasi to Thakur. It's up to you to figure out what to do. You do what you think best. And then he says, seatbelts fastened. He says, because you are my very dear friend, I'm speaking to you the most confidential part of knowledge. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. Because you're my friend, I can share this with you, because we have this really close relationship. I'm not going to tell this just to anybody. I'm not going to give myself away to just anybody, open my heart up to just anybody. And then he says, Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyaji Mame vaishyasi satyante pratijani paryosi. Same thing he said. We had this whole big setup. We've got this big setup here. This is going to be the most confidential knowledge. Are you ready for this? And he did this back right smack in the middle of the Gita in the 9th chapter. And he opens the 9th chapter saying, okay, Now I'm going to explain to you the most confidential knowledge, one of those things like Topper Haridas isn't here so I can say it. One of those, if I tell you, I've got to kill you things, right? Very secret, super top secret. And then, and he builds up through the whole chapter, 30 odd verses, and then he gets to the end. Just love me. That's the whole thing. Just love me. And then then you'll get everything. And that's what happens when people love each other. When we love each other, when we trust each other, we're able to reveal our deepest secrets to each other. And if you think about it, a little daunting, a little intimidating, a little scary. But generally, when there is that trust, you don't think about it. You just say, yes, I have to give this a little bit of myself. What is that old Janis Joplin? Take a little piece of my heart, right? So that's what we do when we love, when we trust. And here, what we see with Maitreya at the end of this chapter, what we see with Draupadi in the Mahabharata, what we see with so many devotees, this is the essence of surrender. It's just like, okay, take me, I'm yours. My dear Lord Krishna, although I have forgotten you for so many long years in this material world, now I am surrendering to you. I am your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service. My dear Lord, from this day, I am yours. Then Krishna might show himself to us when he feels he can trust us. Okay, I'm going to stop. Any quick questions or comments? Oh, okay. Because it's you.
Because that you were saying some of the things that just even someone like Maitreya can't explain it. So is it something we really shouldn't even try to contemplate, understand? It's a waste of our time. We should be using our mental powers in other ways.
It's a wonderful question. And there's maybe a quick sense in which we might say yes, but otherwise, what are our mind and intelligence for? What better uses? I mean, that's what we were talking about the other day. It says, well, we shouldn't. We shouldn't try to. We shouldn't try to get too far out over our skis. So the first thing is we want to understand what the platform of liberation means, which means the freedom from all these material designations. In other words, this is the post that Srila Prabhupada handed, especially after 1966, all those wonderful classes. I mean, if you look at some of the classes Srila Prabhupada gave in 1966, and we don't even know there was necessarily anybody else in the room. He was speaking like from the heart of Chaitanya Charitamrita sometimes, really lofty topics. And then when he started getting to know us a little bit, he started pounding this, you are not the body person. You're not a dude, you're not a girl, you're not an American, you're not, whatever it is you think you are, that's not who you really are. Who you really are is something that's much cooler. What does Krishna say in the Gita? Amazing, right? Some look on the soul is amazing, some see is amazing. So you're an amazing thing. Your consciousness, and not just consciousness as we see in the Paramatma Sandarbha, but consciousness able to be aware of other things and including itself and ultimately of the complete whole. So in a real sense, what else are the mind and intelligence for? So that's why I didn't bring my visual aid again today. I thought I left it here, but I guess I didn't. That's why we have the Tridandi sannyasis have these 3 bamboo rods, back 4 actually, one to symbolize ourselves, designate ourselves, bound together, because our whole business is dedication of Kaya, Mana, and Bhaka to the service of Mukunda. So that means, we use our senses, we use our body to engage in service. to the Lord and to those things that are close to the Lord, those things that belong to Krishna Turiya, especially the devotees. And we use our mind to think of the Lord, and we use our speech to glorify the Lord, as we were looking at the verse the other day. It was either I can't remember if it was Wednesdays or last Sunday, as far as we're able. Don't go beyond your realization. We have one friend who comes here sometimes. He's Prabhupada's own instruction on how to give classes. Don't speak beyond your realization. And there it was in that one person's birthday that I spoke about the other day. So we don't go beyond our realization. It's like sometimes they get out over our skis because we might take a tumble. But we do our best to try to open ourselves to understand, use our mind to receive through submissive oral reception. Pariprat, Prashna, and Seva. Oh, I didn't finish that whole thing just now. So Pranipat, submission, offering our obeisances, offering prostrated obeisances, dandavats. Pariprashna, relevant inquiry, and seva. And it's seva that activates it. It's like I wrote an article a few years ago that it's this Vishrambhena Guru Seva. That's the catalyst. It's the probably call it the active ingredient in our devotional service. And this means, at first, perhaps reverential, very obedient devotion, whatever the Guru says, but ultimately it means you need to be able to read the Guru's heart well enough that you can anticipate what the Guru wants. We see this sometimes. So it's not an ordinary thing, but when you see it, we get struck by it. Wow, what's that about? That's far away. Does that help? Is that okay? It's a start, and a short enough start to keep me from getting into too much trouble. Thank you. But this question is the whole thing, really, in a sense. It's right there. So the tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Upadekshanti, and then accepting initiation. So this is like the very entrance to the temple of bhakti. Jiva Goswami, I think in his commentary on these angas of bhakti in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he says this is the entrance to the temple of bhakti, these first 20 angas, the do's and the don'ts, the vidhi and the nishetas. And these are the entrance to the temple of bhakti. We don't get to the other angas of bhakti without passing through these. And then he says those first three or four, taking shelter of the Guru, accepting initiation and instruction from the Guru, and Vishrambhena Guru said, this intimate service to the Guru. These things are absolutely essential. These are the essential ingredients of bhakti. There isn't real bhakti without that. Thank you so much. I'm eternally grateful to you all. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai.